And it's recording. We're ready to go. Welcome, everyone. This is the Kubernetes Steering Committee meeting from October 1st. My name is Patrick Uli. I'm your bosun or host today. Remember, this meeting falls under the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically means be excellent to each other. I'm going to run the meeting. We do have an agenda. I can share it in a second.
Actually, I already shared.
You did? Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing a screen share myself, so if he's sharing, that's fine. I can take
Oh
notes
no,
and
sorry. In the notes. Yeah, you feel free to share your screen.
yeah,
I just,
yeah,
I just dropped it in the chat. A link to
yeah,
the
yeah. I do have it open. I was just forgot to prepare for that. Well, I was ready. So, do we have a note taker? Otherwise, I'll just try to type and talk at the same time.
I'll handle the notes.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
I already marked the steering attendees. We do have quorum. We have a few community attendees. Thanks for showing up. It's always good to know that we're not doing that just for ourselves. I don't think we have any CNCF updates unless some of my steering committee colleagues can think of something. No.
Nothing at the moment.
Yeah.
On my side.
We have nothing to vote on here in the meeting. We have one pending request about badges, but we'll handle that offline. The question there was whether we want to have I think this time it was the some CNCF code quality badge or Linux Foundation added to the Kubernetes repo.
Yeah. So
Don't do we want?
let's take a moment with that one.
Yeah,
So
okay.
this was the Linux Foundation. I believe it's the LFX Insights revamp badge. It's like meant to indicate project health. Let me look for the conversation.
The
But I
PR
think
is
that
already in chat.
okay, perfect. Thanks, Mache. So I think the TLDR here, and I will wear another hat of mine, which is steering committee member for OpenSSF scorecard and maintainer over there. And we've had conversations about badges in the past, and we've had folks kind of like I think for the scorecard one in particular, there were two attempts, and I would say from the maintainer perspective, neither of those attempts was discussed with the scorecard maintainer group before kind of shipping into other projects. So I think the approach is always important. For this health score badge, I think we're seeing something similar to the like kind of like the scorecard sentiment in that Kubernetes is a very large project. We run across multiple orgs, hundreds of repos within those orgs. And it's hard to really dial into the health of a project by putting a badge in one place or having an expectation that the badge is going to be a true representation of the project state for hundreds of projects, right? So I will, that's the little preamble there. Please take a look at the issue and comments if you feel a certain way. I think the comments that are currently there capture some of our sentiments, but other steering folks, do you have?
I don't think there's anything else to be said other than what was already stated in the issue.
So I will say that sorry, did someone else want to go? I thought I saw a hand.
Oh, it wasn't
was
a hand.
just
It was just
a thumbs up.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. So what I would say is this is not the first time we've seen it. So perhaps we want language around what we put in our repos or are willing to put in our repos. And at least I think that's a reasonable no from steering.
Yeah, it feels a bit odd to have a README that says what you're expecting here is not here because that sounds a bit odd, but it's having some policy documented somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Feels
So like
nice, yeah.
in community or something,
But
in K community or something.
then people looking at the README probably wouldn't know about the policy either, but at least we would have something to point to when this comes up instead of people having to dig out old issue links.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
your point.
Yeah, and it's really it's the CYA of it all, being able to link back to something that we had the previous
Yeah.
discussion, and we feels. I mean, I wouldn't say we feel strongly. I think it is and I think it's something that we, a scorecard, also wrestle with. Like, is this accurate for projects of larger sizes, right? It's very hard to get heuristics like that consistently.
Yeah. So I guess we just need someone who wants to take an AR action item to update our policy somewhere. Any volunteers?
Yeah, like where would this go? This is NK
Uh,
community, NK community,
Not,
but
I'm not
where?
sure. We'll probably need to find a place first and then update the language. But we should have something about vendor neutrality, not neutrality, for example. That seems similar.
We have this doc that we recently updated with the AI broad AI generated pull request.
Well, that's pull. What's contributors? Yeah.
Maybe that's a good starting point. Eventually, I don't know, something like that.
We could
It
also
is
look at
definitely a natural point where we are, and I know that there's like multiple people who are using if you want to close an issue and you want to have a particular policy that you want to point to while closing it. I know that folks are using that particular doc with the specific elements there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is similar to like our not quite similar, but we have a yeah, somewhat similar treatment for things like trivial typos that get opened up, right? There is
yeah,
a
that's what
there,
it much means. Yeah.
yeah.
I think
Ben,
it belongs. I think it belongs more into what we have for SIG docs, where they say that Kubernetes documentation doesn't link to specific vendors, but I'm willing to go with along with whatever other things. I think Ben has
yeah, Ben
his
has his
hands
hand
up.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I think though is that I think this is a little bit different from the others in that it's not necessarily for all the repos. Like we're talking about, does this make sense in Kubernetes, but I don't think it'd be a big problem if sub projects want to, use some badge, and it could vary a bit depending on things like the language they're implemented in or whatever. I think for the core repo, we have a higher bar for avoiding things like picking winners in spaces that aren't very settled. Someone comes to us and says, adopt this thing. Um, we don't want to be in a situation where, we're the advertising for Kubernetes for something that isn't widely adopted. That said, as much as we're talking about vendors, it's also worth pointing out this is the Linux
It's the
Foundation.
Linux Foundation. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I raised my hand for. Yeah.
I want to check because I looked at when we added the previous badges, which was a very long time ago. And one of them was cited as being a requirement for graduating. I don't know if that still makes sense or if we can track down that language. If it's not the case, then my suggestion is instead of trying to come up with a policy that's going to be read as org wide and not much more effective than us just saying no when it rarely comes up, I think we might want to just remove the badges. I don't think that any of the badges we currently have are doing much to help. Like a Go report for the core repo, there are wildly different things in there. There's like the production binaries, the test code, some small utilities that we use. It's misleading to even have a repo wide report on the quality of the Go code or something like that. I think it might make more sense to just drop all of them and avoid the invite to add more. I think they look kind of tacky. So I glanced around at some of the larger open source projects out there, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them do have a couple badges like this, usually not more than 3, but many of them, like PyTorch, they just have their logo and then a discussion of the project, and they go past things like what's the code quality badge for this enormous project. I think we're almost doing ourselves a disservice. And if you want to sell the big project, we have things like the case studies. I think is very different for a repo like Kind versus Kubernetes. If some sub project like that wants to put up a little Go badge that their small Go project has good coverage and things, then sure. But for Kubernetes, I think it's almost silly, and we don't necessarily want to be trying to advertise these services.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Ben. I think that all of the badges are off is a good solve. From the like the scorecard perspective, it's if the badge is useful to you, feel free to pick it up and use it, is where I'm at as a maintainer. I don't believe it should be a requirement for everyone. On the OpenSSF side, we also have the best practices badge, right? Which happens to be in the same working group as scorecard, right? So it's like, hey, you've got you're doing all the things that we want you to do as OpenSSF. Take 2 badges, right? I don't feel like you should have to do that. So I like the removing the badges as a solution. I do I to Ben's point, this is the Linux Foundation. So I think there's maybe worth a conversation of what the eventual goal is. Because I will say from the OpenSSF angle, we've been talking about the open source project security baseline as a thing that Linux Foundation leadership is interested in rolling out to all of Linux Foundation directed funds, and I guess subsequently those projects, the projects they're in. So I think we should at least check in with them if this is something that they're considering as part of that. And if so, this needs to be a deeper conversation. But I do like the general, let's take all the badges off idea. In addition to the documentation.
Concretely, also, what we have is we have this release badge that just has the latest tag, which doesn't seem very useful. A Go report, which seems kind of misleading because, as we mentioned, there's many modules in here, and some of them are just tools being vendored. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And the OpenSSF best practices. Over the years, the other ones have already dropped. So I think probably the only one that would really need discussion is the OpenSSF best practices. I don't really think the Go report or the release v1.x badge are doing a lot. And the other thing is, I think in a smaller repo, you would expect that maybe maintainers are frequently winding up loading up the repo and seeing these badges and making sure they're green or something. I don't think anyone in Kubernetes is regularly looking at the README. It's something that we extremely rarely touch. And there's so much going on in other venues. I really doubt the last change was a link fix 10 months ago.
Yeah, I think if you're reading the README, you're driving by or looking for the place where the real information is. I think as a community member, you're tapped into other locations for information. So I agree.
I also don't think it would be terrible, this badge. The biggest concern I have is that when it was proposed previously, there were a lot of misleading components to it. For example, we were failing the status of having a Slack because it wasn't like detecting it in the README or something. Like, and it did seem like a better fit for like a smaller, still maturing project. If we think that like the value that it's presenting has evolved to be better than and that this is going to be widely used in the Linux Foundation, then perhaps we should add it.
Yeah, so let me yeah, let me poke around with the Linux Foundation a little bit on this one. Because I would love to know if this is tied to the larger baseline effort. because Insights has started to message some of that as well. I will say for smaller projects, like if they've got, I think there is a signal for using something like best practices, using something like a scorecard badge, because it tells me that at least you were thinking about it. And you're thinking about the security of your project, right? The scores may not be perfect, but the test of should I pick this project up at all, right? I'm looking at their insights and dependents and dependencies and various things. How good is the documentation? The seeing one of the OpenSSF badges on the project is also a signal to me. It's not a perfect signal, but it is like someone's trying something here, right? Or someone's thinking about something here.
Yeah, I think for like a smaller dependency or something, that makes sense. I think for these mega projects, we kind of expect a different tier of like, we have a whole security response committee and a security reporting process.
Like it's Kubernetes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
like,
different
I'm
conversation.
gonna expect
sure.
something very different of a really large organization versus like a library.
Yeah.
I mean, case in point, we're all using Linux, and there is no Linux repo with a bunch of LFX badges on it.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've discussed that enough, and we have a few follow-ups, so we'll probably come back to that, but we can also do that offline. Next on the agenda was one item that I added, and it's just a public service announcement. We are in the middle of a next steering committee election. So the election began middle of September, and there's still time to make yourself known as someone who wants to vote and hasn't been granted that privilege yet. So there is an exception process that you can follow, and you can find it in the steering folder. The election then ends end of October, and we hopefully have lots of votes by then, because that's your chance to influence who's going to represent us next. That's really all I wanted to call out. We don't have that many people here, but perhaps some people will watch the recording. So don't forget, we are replacing some members, and new people have a chance to join us. Sergey, he said that he might be late, and I don't see him among the participants yet, so we need to skip that one. Mario, you could go ahead and start talking about your topic.
Yeah, sure. As some of you can remember, we had a vote among the leads of the various SIGs and also, of course, across steering and the working groups. What should our representation be for KubeCon North America 2025? And the result was that we would like to have the project pavilion take over and as well the meet and greet. So the meet and greet is already is also in the agenda. It will be on the second day of KubeCon, and the takeover of the project pavilion will be on the first day of KubeCon, and it will be 1 hour before booth crawl. So it will be 5 p.m. local time. And there also was the idea that Kubernetes contributors and maintainers mingle around in the in the project pavilion where all of the booths of the other projects are. And we also have the stage. So an idea was to have on the stage an AMA, like to ask maintainers anything. And I am looking for volunteers to be on the project pavilion stage to engage in the MA. History told, the project pavilion is usually visited by a lot of folks, and this could be a good chance to represent the Kubernetes project and find potentially new contributors to it. Yeah. Anyone wants to join on stage?
You said this
I
is, yeah, I can help out with this. Okay, Tim.
I can also be there. I just learned today that I have travel funding from the CNCF actually, so I'll
Ooh,
be at KubeCon
nice.
North America. Yeah,
Nice.
so I'll certainly would like to help.
Okay, can we just add this to the agenda so that I can copy it out and then ping people individually? I will also do a call for, I think if we have like 4 or 5 people on stage, that would be fine. I will also ping some other folks and also try to have some more folks from Contrib X there. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to check timing. I think that like Antonio and I should be there. I think we might need to do a little bit of booth work and our talks, obviously.
That's the main issue. That's I think a lot of folks have double bookings, and that was also the reason why we don't want to do it when there's booth crawl, because we expect that most of the folks need to be around the booth when there's the booth crawl,
Yeah.
which is happening afterwards. So we moved it 1 hour earlier, so that's
Mario,
people are not stuck. Go ahead.
how flexible are you? I mean, when is the last time we can tell you, oh, I'm going to attend or not?
On Wednesday, on this day, basically.
Okay.
I'm happy as long as we have someone on stage that can answer some questions. That's
Okay, thank you.
I should be able
Okay.
to. I think we'll have a few people from steering.
yeah. So then it's just like, come be there, and just that I have some people on stage. It's not like fixed thing, right? We do it on demand, or as flexible as possible, like we always do with events.
I
Thanks
believe
for
the
organizing this.
yeah, I believe the more volunteers we have, the better it'll be to pick
Yeah.
from. And just in case, I don't know, half of them won't show up, that's still good attendance.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mario.
Yep. So still no Sergey. Let me see whether I can open that doc. I haven't tried that in. Yeah, it's shared.
Well, I would
I-
say, Sean, do you have any comments here?
Yeah. Sorry.
Nope, I'm just watching.
Okay. All right.
I was going to say that I was skimming at the dog, and it seems that what they are indicating is that Windows is not catching up or developing, and now there are features that are not thought for Windows. So I think that they are asking if they cannot consider Windows, and that's okay. But I don't know exactly how we want to organize this, if this is the steering,
Yeah.
if this is architecture, if this is. I don't think that it should be per se, because I mean Windows is in all the things. But I think that this deserves a more high level discussion, right? And a more holistic solution than, okay, now I'm going to apply caps or not. Kind of remind me what is the IBM platform, this kind of thing that went out to support.
The S390X stuff?
Yeah, it's not the same thing, but a parallelism, right? We stop having people contributing in that. But
I would say
what is the plan?
when we raised a stink about that, as a result, we actually have finally CI coverage upstream for those. And we have some people that have been participating a bit more actively. I still don't know if it's the right trade-off for the project, but like that did get in a much healthier state than it was comparatively. I pinged Sergey, hoping that he might be able to join, but I haven't seen a response yet as the doc author. But I had some similar discussions. I've looked at what's going on with Windows and filed some bugs and things in the project, and it's in pretty poor shape. There is like not any good CI coverage, for example, which I think is extra important for these platforms where realistically the majority of our developers can like locally test and iterate with Linux, but I don't think very many of the core contributors are spinning up nodes with Windows licenses. And like we didn't even, when I was filing bugs about this within the past year, we were even seeing things like just running the unit tests took north of 2 hours. They didn't accurately report test failures. It's not suitable to be a, even a release informing job with how it's running. And that's just for like one of the most basic things. It seems like it's really unhealthy. And I understand from for Signode that you have to consider Windows for like every feature. Like if you're changing pod, you need to think about how it's going to affect both platforms. And we have significantly more health and development with Linux.
Who is the liaison with Windows? I'm asking. I'm not sure that it's going to be me or something. But what is
It's in
the
SIGSYAML.
repo? Well,
If it'll load, I'll tell you in a second.
So the internet.
It's me. I thought I've been talking to them anyhow. We should. Yeah, I've been doing some back channeling on this in the past. I didn't really want to raise a particular public stink, but I have reached out to some Windows folks to talk about the state of things and what we can do about it.
Yeah, I've not seen that doc. Well, I saw that it was added to the meeting agenda shortly before the meeting, but I haven't looked at the document myself yet. So I think several of us might be in the same boat. I would say we take that as for our information at this point. Read through the document, start discussions perhaps, but
It's
not
not,
take in. All right,
I
does
would
that
take a
sound fair?
look. We
Good.
have half an hour left in the meeting. I think no
Okay.
other topics, and
Yeah.
it's not
Then
very long.
do I make I can make it a little bit larger perhaps so that you can see it better on the screen share and we can go through it. But the question is whether I should read it out aloud or whether you just want to read through it or call out certain things. I certainly do.
We can do a silent read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So not sure how far you got. I have read through it. One thing that stands out for me, and this might have been, yeah, I think Ben also commented on that as a testing lead. this must be marked as Linux only is something that I find a bit questionable. And it's also not saying in the proposal itself who must be doing that, whether it's the original author or SIG Windows.
For me, the fundamental question is seeing Windows is not going to develop new features, so I would focus more on the question in the long term. Is what is the problem? Is that it's technically impossible? Is that there is no people to work on that? Because
I think the
it
issue
sounds
is
like we need to make a decision on saying, oh, is Windows supported or is partially supported or is just frozen.
there are non-zero people working on it. I think the issue is the disparity and trying to ignore it. So it seems like the proposal is basically saying Signode is going to prioritize Linux outright and call it like it is, and Windows features can be developed as a catch-up, but considering Windows is not necessarily a blocker for new APIs or features.
I
And
think
the
it's
implementation detail of tagging the tests is something we can follow up separately.
yeah, I think it's also saying that like we just want to make some explicit notes around the tagging of the tests. Ben, to your point around I would say that part of this, what I'm not seeing in this proposal is a discussion around release informing, release blocking jobs, right? And if the state of those are not such that they should be in any one of those categories, I think you know, preamble to any future Windows work is getting that in a good state.
So I was actually the release lead shadow in the release that GA'd Windows officially. And there were some issues then, but they like SIG Windows did get some CIN, but I'm looking at release master blocking and I must be missing. I don't see anything in master blocking. Nothing that indicates Windows. There's nothing on Azure, so it's not hiding behind that as a naming, and there's nothing that mentions Windows. And I think I'm familiar with all of these. I'm looking at informing now, and there is a CapZ Windows master which is broken. The only job, and that appears to be it. I know there were GCE jobs, but SIG Windows deleted them, and then some Google folks came and got them working again at some point, but they're not in any of the um, release dashboards. And that was maybe last year. And the commit diff for it failing is showing nothing, so it's not reporting the diff correctly. Yeah, it's set up so it's reporting the CapZ diff instead of the Kubernetes diff.
The Kubernetes stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably an easier fix, but also it is actually currently the only thing hard failing in the informing dashboard, and it is just one job, some E2E tests on Azure with CapZ. So I think that was one of the things that I had been backpedaling on was that like this is not good. There was some ask to put the unit tests into pre-submit, but they weren't healthy enough to be a release informing. And we would ask more coverage for like a CPU platform than just the unit tests.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is definitely that this proposal makes sense from a state of Windows and Kubernetes kind of perspective. And as speaking as someone who has been contributing a feature that currently has a runtime dependency, we need for DRA, we need CDI support. We don't have any Windows runtime that supports it, and not much thought has been spent on how that would be supported either. So I'm kind of +1 on this proposal. The details need to be sorted out, and I think we need to talk with Windows folks before we make any kind of decision.
But the question is, the proposal cannot be only no. It has to be project wide, right? I mean, they are the people more impacted, but I'm talking for Sync Network. We are coming with a proxy entry that is lagging behind.
Yeah. By the way, to the point of it needs to include Windows, not SIG Network. Mark Rossetti is one of the reviewers listed on this doc, who's one of the Windows folks at Microsoft last I checked. But I agree that it's not just SIG Node and SIG Windows.
Yeah, no, it's both SIGs spearheading this initiative because it affects them perhaps the most. But yeah, it is an overall project decision what the role of Windows should be in Kubernetes.
I think at the very least, Antonio's point, SIGNet should join in on this and make a decision because they also have a component that must directly target Windows and with specific code paths and features. I think most of the other components, that's not nearly as true, but it could be for storage and so on. And we should probably send this wider.
I would say policy wise also, architecture and release.
Yeah, release is actually one of the more impacted. So all the IBM drama came through release, right?
Yeah.
So do
When
we
we
have
started
any
talking,
category or something like in the other? I think that for the platform I think it was Sasha, right, that created this kind of 3 tiers supported categories or something. Do we have something for Linux Windows in release?
Sasha, I think when we were initially talking about this, we were just doing it for the sake of reasoning about the platforms that were in support, server platforms that were in support that we were reconsidering. So like the S390X stuff and DTC 64LE. I do not believe, I'm not sure if Windows is included as part of that. Sasha, do you know?
I think it is, but I think we have a work in progress document to rework the platform support, and we still made no progress on that. So we can probably also follow up on that. And
yeah, when the S390X stuff happened, we had a bunch of discussions around the end of last year, and I think Jeremy started a draft doc, but it didn't progress past that.
So we need to reignite that.
I feel like the general sentiment from the discussion was that the policy we have now sort of just captured the way things are and not what we actually wanted to deal with supporting and what the bar should be. And we had some discussions about what might be reasonable, but it all just kind of sat in like a draft Google Doc. To be fair, we got more resources on the platforms that were primarily being discussed. So it didn't feel like I feel like for most folks, it wasn't as big of a priority to follow up on that. There is also, though, if we are looking at this again and discussing this topic, it hasn't been brought to steering, I think, but there have been some open discussions in the Kubernetes repo from folks looking for RISC-V as another CPU platform. And part of the problem there was like, well, you should talk to release and release engineering, but maybe still in the middle of revisiting what is required.
Yeah, so with the release hat on, we can come back with something. I think there are some open dots that we need to clean. So I think TLDR here is that we like the idea and but it needs a bit more meat on the bones and stakeholders.
But do we agree that we need to make this a project-wide decision? I mean, I see a lot of fallout from one decision, right? If Node doesn't implement, in network doesn't implement, then release is going to end with weird situation, scheduling and storage maybe.
I don't know if we can obligate SigNode to do something different, but I think that we should at least bring it to a project-wide discussion, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like, I think they might.
Okay,
I think I might
what I
reframe
was
it away
trying to
from,
mean.
yeah, from the decision to just like we should be making sure that this gets discussed project-wide.
Exactly. What I tried to mean is that okay, signal have it clear, and this can happen as a domino effect from the signal decision, or as signal is leading this thing, and okay, the rest of the project is agreed with. No. Okay.
Okay, so next step would be that we share that more widely. Will someone poll? Well, we probably need to go through the doc a bit more, polish any open questions, and then send a link to a mailing list, perhaps. Is that
So
what
I
we should recommend, or
yes, I
or
think
just go to other stakeholders like we discussed, like SIG architecture, SIG storage.
well, I think we first invite Sergey and Mark to revisit the meeting and the notes. So that they can catch up on that before we go wide with anything, right? There's still open comments in the doc, and so they should look at our feedback first before we do anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I just don't want to make decisions for them when they're not in the room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. I just wanted to be sure that we do have a next step. Otherwise, it will just sit there. Good. Yeah.
We could take an
That's-
item to follow up at a venue like maybe architecture or something, like after we've heard from Sergey and Mark.
Yeah. So then can you, as a liaison, can you tap in with them and just say that
Yeah.
we've got feedback?
Yeah. Do we have any? Is there anything in particular that you all want passed along besides what we may have captured in the notes already?
I think the notes are enough to generate a conversation for next steps. So I think that's sufficient for now.
Okay. I will start that.
Thank you.
So we still have a quarter of an hour, but we ran out of topics in the agenda itself. Does anyone else have something they want to bring up? If not, we can give you all some time back. We have just one last point. We need the next boson for the October meeting. That's among steering members. Any volunteers? Actually, we are in the October meeting. We need someone for November, which rules out Ben and myself because we are cycling out.
No.
Also be
No,
cycling
I have
out.
Yet?
I have my last year. Yeah, I'm
I'll be
midway
cycling
through.
out.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It will be my last time, so I perhaps a few parting words. Thanks for having me. But I'll not run for steering again. It's been a great time, and I would highly recommend it for everyone who is interested. But yeah, I still have too much other things going on.
Yeah, I think I can take that one, and thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe the next call will be when we will be announcing the results from the steering.
Is
So
it?
I will
I don't think
still
so.
join then, but
No, I don't even think this is your last one. I was looking the other day at I believe the timeline this year, it actually extends through to October, and then we're announcing going into
Okay.
KubeCon. So I believe we're not done with you yet.
Oh,
That's yeah.
I'm
So
sorry for you.
so the next public meeting we will be having on November 5th,
Okay.
which is
Just to
exactly
hand
when we
over.
will be announcing the results of the steering. voting. So ideally, I would say the call should be run by folks who are staying on the steering, and that is
Me, Sasha,
Ben,
and
Antonio,
Antonio.
and Sasha. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that one.
Okay.
Okay. Then it's settled. Thanks, everyone, and talk to you again in a month or so.
Thank you. Take it
Goodbye.
easy.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.